Super Bowl in Carolina. That's a good one. Well, you know, the owners have so much respect for Mitch Richardson that it wouldn't surprise me. But hosting a Super Bowl right now has really become pretty complex. We now have, I think the minimum hotel space is 30,000 hotel rooms. And the events around the game itself are extraordinary. And one of the things Mr. Richardson has put an emphasis on is the stadium. And we have a number of wonderful facilities around the country, but that's our stage, and that's the core of it. And you've got a great one here in Carolina. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I was wondering, how can the NFL, I know some of the players do something within the school systems, but I would like to know, how can the NFL do something regarding involving the students? I've tried several years trying to get NFL players to come out to my school, and I was wondering, what can I do to bring players or different programs into the school that I teach?
Well, it's a good question, and I will tell you that no one is prouder of what our players do in their communities. A lot of attention goes to players who may not do some of the most positive things, but so many of our players are out there making their communities better and giving back to their communities. And every club has a community relations department. I would suggest contacting the Panthers Community Relations Department. And we do an awful lot of work in the communities, not just in school systems, but in other projects in the communities. Again, to make that tie to our communities, because we represent our communities. And I know the Panthers feel strongly about that, and I'm sure they'd be happy to get your call and hopefully get someone over there. Yes, sir.
What are you guys doing about teams getting stacked now that you guys have those new salary caps? I mean, because some football teams are trying to look like the New York Yankees, you know what I'm talking about? Where players are taking pay cuts to be able to stack teams. Do you guys have anything in place to keep that from happening?
Well, one big difference for the people who didn't hear that question, how do we keep the competitive balance? You made the reference that some teams are starting to look like the Yankees. I would disagree with you respectfully. One of the things we have is a salary cap, which the New York Yankees don't have, and baseball doesn't have. That gives every team a competitive platform in which they have to operate within that salary cap. How you manage your team, how you manage your salary cap, how you acquire talent, how you handle your coaching, your scouting, all of those things go into what makes a franchise successful. And it's one of the things that Mr. Richardson puts a lot of focus on. You don't win necessarily by spending the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. You can't win a Super Bowl by spending the most amount of money. You have to put the right fundamentals in place. You have to get the right people in the right positions to make those decisions. And I believe the Panthers have been in the championship game 3 times in their 17 years or so, and won a Super Bowl. And I know they don't quit until they win that Super Bowl, but it's not something you can pay for. And I believe, while a number of teams have been active in the offseason, the great thing about the NFL is you're going to be surprised by somebody this year. Yes, sir. Well, for those who couldn't hear that question, is how do we continue to enforce our policies on personal conduct, our drug policies, because of the influence it has on the younger generation? And again, I think the NFL has had a leadership role here, and will continue to do that. We were the first to have a drug policy league-wide. We were the first to have performance-enhancing drug policy, and we were the first to really have a personal conduct policy that I think sets us apart as a league. Now, we'll continue to improve those because I think you have to do that. As an example, on the collective bargaining agreement, it's no secret we're negotiating over expanding our testing to HGH, which is a new form of performance enhancing. But the message is clear. You don't play in the NFL if you don't act properly, if you don't conduct yourself and reflect well on the league, you're going to have a short career in the NFL. I don't know. I hope not, because I hope people are going to behave. But you know, we've been very clear about our policies, and we believe that acting appropriately and reflecting well on what I call the shield, the NFL shield, and every other logo, including the Panthers logo, is an important thing for everybody. So we don't compromise in that area. Yes. Okay. The one with the blue hair. Go for it.
I know there was a lot of talk about preseason games. I'd like to know, is there a possibility to lower the price of preseason games as opposed to regular season games being the same price because postseason games go up? Is there a possibility to get preseason tickets prices lower? It would pack the stadium.
It's something I hear from fans consistently, and it's why we started to evaluate the potential of an 18-2 regular season. We know that the quality of the preseason is something we have to address. We talked about that a great deal in the collective bargaining, and we want to do everything we're involved with quality. There's another side to that, which is health and safety. That's why we're implementing some of these rules, and then we'll discuss this with the union over the next couple of years. If we're successful in addressing that properly, maybe reducing the preseason, which I think is a better solution than just reducing the price. On the other hand, we have taken a lot of short-term steps to allow us to discount more tickets, to be able to provide more tickets to either charitable organizations, military, so that we can get more people into our stands for preseason games. But I believe it starts with the core of what you do. It's your product, and the game is our product. And when you're not seeing the best players and you're not seeing competitive games, that's what fans want to see. And our job is to give fans what they want. Yes, ma'am.
The number of practices and pads during the season. I'm in the medical field. I can see the pros of that as far as limiting the hits, but I can also see the potential for not having the ability to be well conditioned when you're not doing that many practices and pads too. Number one, are you interested, or is there anything built into the CBA that will revisit that in a few years to see if that was a positive thing? And also, was that in any way a step toward trying to get to an 18-game season as opposed to 4 preseason games?
Well, a couple of points. One is the game evolves, and if you're in the medical industry, you know that medicine evolves and changes occur, and you have to adapt to that. We learn more about how to condition our athletes, what the impact is on injuries, and how better to prepare our players. And that has evolved over the years. It used to be that they'd come out in training camps, and maybe when Mr. Richardson played, they had 6 weeks of preseason training camps, double sessions every day. We don't prepare our athletes like that, and we haven't for several decades. The game has evolved because our athletes are better conditioned. If you see these young men when they walk out here, you can see these guys. They work out all year long. They come into camp in shape and they're ready to play. But there is such a thing as football shape, and there's such a thing as the quality of the game. And that's a balance that you always want to try to find, is how do you continue to make sure what you do is highest quality. And we're going to learn that as we go. But we've always made changes. We don't wait to make changes after it's too late. We make changes in advance, and we always try to figure out how we can do things better. And that's what we live by. How do we make things better, including not only the quality of the game, but also the health and safety. So that's a balancing act that I wish there was an exact answer to. But to your specific question, will we revisit that? We revisit that constantly in the NFL. Yes, sir.
The toughest obstacle that you had to overcome? If you had to single out one obstacle to get the agreement, what was it?
getting people to listen to one another. I think, when you get into a situation where you have a labor dispute, the immediate reaction is to get entrenched in your position and not listen. And I think Mr. Richardson would agree, the most critical moment in our negotiations was when we had the principals talk to one another. We threw all the lawyers out, all the negotiators, everybody but 5 owners, myself, Demore Smith, head of the Players Association, and 5 players. And we had 3 days of discussions in Chicago. And we started off with an informal dinner. We just had dinner with one another and talked about each other and understood one another and understood what we were all about. And the next day we started with business meetings. And I would say in those 2 days that followed, we made more progress than we had done in probably 6 months before that. Because people listened and they understood where they were coming from and what the importance of what they were saying. And once you do that, you can find solutions. And the reality is this is all about finding solutions. And it takes compromise. When you come into negotiation, you think you're going to get everything you want. That's not going to happen. You have to compromise. And if everyone gives a little, you get a lot. And that's, I think, what's happened here. And the thing that I'm probably most proud of, even though it's only a week old, is that this deal is really being positioned as a win-win deal. And it should be. Because I think every side's going to benefit, and most importantly, our fans. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, you were talking about the health issues about the players. Is there any new technology coming out as far as helmets are concerned? Last year I noticed a lot of helmets between college and pro players popping off, chin straps snapping real easy. Do you have new technology coming out to protect them from those concussions and things like that?
Yes, we do. We not only have, we don't manufacture the helmets, but we have manufacturers that we are encouraging, and obviously we are going to be doing everything we can to test those helmets. And they're competitive. They want to sell their product. So they're trying to make the best product. And we have raised the level of studies and the quality of those helmets. We had the same issue that you noticed last year, which is helmets popping off. There are different theories about that, whether that's a chin strap or the position of the chin strap, and also, quite frankly, whether that's bad. That could reduce the impact in some ways. But it goes back to the medical question. There's so much for us to learn. And what we have to do is make sure that we're willing to learn, and that we're going to do everything we can to learn and get better. And that includes our partners and the people who make the equipment, includes what we do in our rules to make our game safer. But we are not going to be satisfied with just being successful. We want to be more successful. Yes, sir.
That the concussion level, how do you determine what size is the fine if you learn it? The fine that you charge the players on a concussion, how can you tell which one costs more and which one don't?
Well, we don't fine for concussions. We fine for techniques that are used that we think lead to concussions or other injuries. If a technique that we have been able to determine where you're actually using the head in a way that can lead to a concussion, either for yourself as being the person who's doing the striking or the player who's being struck, that if that technique's being used, we try to eliminate that from the game. And that's where the fine is levied. So if we see a technique, we try to eliminate that from the game if we think it's dangerous. And that's happened throughout the years. You've been around, I love you see, we've had a lot of rules over the years that have come out of the game that have made the game safer. It allows players to stay on the field longer, which is what I think the fans want and the players want. And it's something we're going to continue to focus on.
Commissioner.
Yes.
What was Mr. Richardson's role in getting this deal done? What was Mr. Richardson's role in getting this deal done?
The question is, what was Mr. Richardson's role in getting the labor agreement done? In a simple word, I'd say leadership. He has such tremendous respect of the 31 other owners. he has respect from the players. He helped us manage a process that is not always simple. You have to keep 32 clubs informed. You have to consider a lot of things. You have to keep them united. And he did that. And he worked tirelessly to do that, including calling owners almost on a daily basis to make sure they understood exactly where we were in negotiations. And when you do that and you keep people informed, you're going to be successful. And I think that was because of Mr. Richardson's leadership.